The key idea in this presentation is to expand cybernetics by bringing cybernetics to others through engaging them with the tools rather than teaching. The presentation is an example of what it's about, namely creating solutions through reflexivity, attention to detail, and conversations with oneself and with others. One of the key ideas of cybernetics is that most phenomena can be understood as systems, and that all systems are circular, and that understanding this circularity can enable us to influence these systems. The problem is that just knowing this information doesn't really help you to put it into practice. It's only when you begin to use these three statements as tools to examine a system that they become powerful. When we observe, pay attention to detail, study, and have conversations, we understand the phenomena around us in a deeper way, and that enables us to make better choices in pursuing the future that we want to see. The tools of cybernetics help us to do this and actually change us so that we can do it. Think of cybernetics as a set of tools distributed across disciplines for examining, designing, making choices, and taking actions, not just about a particular discipline, but about individual, regional, and global problems. Some examples where these tools can be applied are the following. Understanding and working on personal relationships, something I do as a licensed psychologist, doing therapy and counseling, and also working with in-service teachers to help them manage their classes and assist students in learning. Another is considering how being a back surgeon affects recommendations to patients regarding back pain, something I've been involved in recently as an observer. Another would be understanding paradoxical effects of certain medications, such as proton pump inhibitors, where long-time use of the medication may actually produce the opposite of the intended effect. Another would be managing an institution, a company, or a city, or on a planetary level, understanding and responding to global climate change or other global problems. These tools include circularity or circular causal feedback, reflexivity, constructing perception, including constructing reality, requisite variety, which refers to generating sufficient responses so that we can address a problem at an appropriate level of complexity in order that we can actually influence a solution. And finally, looking at situations, objects, machinery as a system. The underlying idea is that using these tools changes one's world in the process of using them. They change the individual in the process of using them. So what we're trying to do is to get people to question their assumptions and then to look at the possibility of the tools. All of these tools are presented as if they're separate, but of course they're very much interactive. So just going through the 5 rows, one of the key assumptions that all human beings have is that they know what caused something else. I know this caused that. I know A caused B. The idea is to get them to consider, well, are A and B affecting each other? Which is the idea of circularity. Second is the idea of getting people to question that they know what should be done, that they know what's going on, to questioning how their assumptions might be affecting how they look at the situation, otherwise known as reflexivity. A third is the idea that, well, this is the way it is. Again, we want them to look at their assumptions and to think about, how are my assumptions affecting how I see reality, how I am actually constructing reality to fit my particular assumptions. Another is to look at how a very simple way of looking at a situation is constraining my ability to come up with an adequate solution. So the idea of requisite variety is having a set of responses which is equal to the complexity of the system in order to be able to influence that system. And then finally, the whole idea of being able to look at a set of situations or a situation or a person as a system, and to look at this to understand that this is a situation where a change of one element changes the whole system. Unlike other tools in the sciences that are discipline specific, cybernetics is transdisciplinary. It deals not just with all of the sciences, but also with situations that arise in life in general, as well as work outside of science, also in the communities in which we participate, and finally in the interaction of all of those and how they're influencing one another. The tools change us as we use them to understand, make choices, and take action. The question is how we can help others to do the same. And I've been trying to do this in my career as a psychologist, as a professor, and also as the member of a family and as a member of the community and of the world. One of the interesting things about these tools is that as soon as you present them to people, they tend to say, oh, well, I already know this. And of course, the tools are not unique to cybernetics. Everyone uses the tools to some extent. All the disciplines use the tools to some extent. But what we have to offer is that the amount of practice we have in using these tools, particularly in a reflexive manner where we're looking at not just a problem, but at how we think about problems, about how we think about thinking, about how we interact with each other, that we have a lot of expertise in, and that's something that we can share with others. That's something we can use with others. In using the tools, there are two conditions that are necessary to engage others. Number one, the individual or the group that we would like to work with has to be motivated and has to recognize a particular problem or situation that they want to work on. Number two, they have to be willing to engage with us. Another way of saying this is that we have to get hired as a colleague, a consultant, a friend, etc. Engaging others in these tools is very different than teaching them. So the key point of these 7 things, which are all overlapping, by the way, is that they are a different approach than simply teaching, presenting, lecturing, giving a video, which is what this is. So let's just go through these. Listening in a deep way rather than lecturing or giving information. Using the other's language rather than our language. Asking questions rather than teaching. Then also avoiding going beyond our expertise. Also avoid accepting non-reflexive assumptions and problem statements. Because as soon as we do that, then we're caught up in their way of looking at the problem and their assumptions rather than helping them look at their assumptions and how that affects their understanding of the problem. Finally, taking into account that many solutions need to be based on desires understood through reflexivity, not simply on technical fixes. Finally, taking care with language so that we're always being reflexive in what we're doing. The strategies I've outlined above are sufficient to involve others in using cybernetic tools, but not sufficient to involve them in using cybernetics per se. What tends to happen is that they are aware of the fact that we're having a conversation with them, but not the fact that we're using cybernetic tools and that we actually have some expertise that we can share about cybernetic tools. So in closing, my whole purpose here is to open up a conversation about where do all of us see ways of engaging others within our disciplines or elsewhere with the tools of cybernetics in an explicit way that brings them to an interest in cybernetics.